Cool. I wanted to tonight talk about, I guess, the best exercise, and I don't know why or how this actually became a thing as well. Is the best exercise to do, X, Y, and Z, and I think we as a society have got drifting away from things being multifaceted and multidimensional, and trying to make things too a-dimensional to help us fix a problem. Say, for example, if we're sick or something like that, we'll just take some cough drops or something like that. But really, there's really a lot more going on. And if we look at the human body, the body is made up of multiple systems, and they're very intertwined with one another, and they rely on each other and communicate with each other in order to function really well. If one system drops down in terms of function, that means the other systems have to go on overdrive to overcompensate for it, and that obviously begins the breakdown of our body, or the person's body that we're talking about. But coming back to the best exercise and how it really doesn't exist, I think it's really just playing on our psychology at the end of the day, and it's more like a salesy thing, trying to sell on people's insecurities at the end of the day. So when it comes to that society's insecurities, we've been, we've been exposed to more of this, this beauty side or this fitness side of society. We have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, feel a certain way, drink certain things in order to look a certain way. And we know from social media, that's capturing that person in that best moment, literally in their best moment. But really, it's causing a lot more problems later on down the track. And unfortunately, a lot of people get drawn into this, that they have to look, feel, and function a certain way based on the people that they follow or the people they really look up to. And this is where we need to kind of shift the thinking a little bit more and make it not so a-dimensional and make it multi-dimensional in terms of how do we help people if they're looking to look a certain way. Okay, now we can start to ask more questions. And now that the way technology is working, we live in an instant gratification society and culture where we can order fish and chips from down the road in 20 minutes. It's on our doorstep, piping hot, ready to eat. The cars, when we purchase a car, we can get a loan for the dream car that we want. We can get things really quickly. We can get things so much more faster. And this is no exception when it comes to the fitness industry, where people want to look, feel, and function a certain way really quickly. But we know, well, us here on tonight and a big pocket of society really know that this is not the way. But then there's a huge chunk of society think that they have to consume a certain product, perform a certain exercise, run, mindless miles in order to look a certain way, where it's not addressing the individual at the end of the day. And we fail to take into account individual needs. We have people popping, YouTube videos and Facebook workouts of, do this workout to get flat abs or something like that. And it's really driving the fitness industry in the wrong direction. It fails to take into account, the age of the person, the biological age, the training age, and the training history, but the goals and conditions and injuries that they may actually have that might actually make it more detrimental for them long term. So they might feel good and feel great after the workout or something like that, but really we don't know if they're actually doing more harm than good. So we need to make sure that we're addressing individuals' needs, and we'll talk about that in a sec. What does the best exercise really mean? Basically, this is more of a subjective point of view. It basically means to me a quick solution. And it also tells me that person doesn't want to put much effort into or think about it too much or put much effort into attaining their goals. So whether it is to lose 10 kilos or whether it is, put on a bunch of muscle mass, they're trying to do it with the least amount of energy and the least amount of thought. And the beauty of the way the human body works, it requires a shitload of energy and a shitload of thought and consistency and time in order to attain what we want. And the best exercise is also very generic in nature. So what I mean is, you know, all these running programs that are being put out on the internet, you know, they're great starting points, but usually these programs are actually created for, you know, someone who's got no injuries, maybe have some level of history of playing sport when they were growing up, and then they're looking just to get back into some level of fitness. But really, we need to ask a lot more questions in order to understand whether or not this is going to be the best modality for them. A, is it going to be enjoyable? B, is it going to do more damage than good? These are things we need to understand when we prescribe certain exercises, and we'll talk about that in the case study that I've got set up for us later on. With exercise, it needs to be multifaceted with different degrees of influence from varying. It's multifaceted, but with influences from various areas. So basically, like I mentioned before, their age is going to come into effect. You know, what they eat is going to come into effect. What they do is their lifestyle, work. We don't know what their training age, their training background, what sport are they good at? Are they a fast twitch? Are they a slow twitch? Are they there's so many more variables that we need to consider before we actually say this is the best exercise for this person. Because you might, for example, you might have two athletes that are 800-meter athletes. You might have someone who's very slow twitch in nature. So they might actually really benefit from doing more sprint-based work. But then you might have someone who's a bit more fast twitch in nature and might actually benefit from doing more endurance-based work. So you can't really put everyone into the same category when it comes to prescribing exercises, or which is going to be the best exercise to do X, Y, and Z. I've got a little case study here. So the case study, I Googled it somewhere random. I think it was a Women's Day in the US or something like that. And the article was the best exercises for weight loss. And I found this really interesting, just kind of flicking through the exercises they chose. And it was, to be honest, it was good in terms of the exercises they chose. They chose large compound exercises, resistance-based, circuit style. Ticks all the boxes when it comes to like the weight loss side, right? It's more so the exercise chosen and the way it's actually structured is actually what's actually gonna be like the best for weight loss in this case. But I don't know if you've read just through the push-up part, just a description of the exercise. It totally neglected the actual muscles used during the exercise. So a push-up is another exercise that really engages your core and legs. I'm like, well, you know, what the hell is moving during this time? And I was like, I see Karen just a little bit of a chuckle. It's just a stupid thing that negated, you know, it's going to help develop, you know, develop through your chest, through the front of your shoulders, through your triceps. So it's an upper body push exercise, but it just completely negated that. And this is kind of what's shooting up the wall is this core and legs. Just putting in those key terms, those key words. I want a tight core. I want some, you know, tight legs. That's what it kind of felt like from this article, where they could have just really addressed that and kept it to the lunges and the squats. So yes, it engages the core and legs, but we also need to understand how. So how is it actually engaging our core? You know, we know that for the guys on here, you know, pelvic positioning can actually influence, you know, muscular activity. So when we're talking about the pelvic position, you know, when we have that pelvis tucked under, our glutes are on, our quads are on, our core's on, that means we are starting to tick those boxes. But if you've got someone who's got the back of, you know, of a cereal bowl, we know that we're just overloading their lower back. I know Karen's got something to say really quickly. Oh, I was just pointing to yourself.
I have a cereal bowl.
Well, we're working on that. Oops. But I'll give it credit though. It did mention diet and physical activity as the main components in order to help drive the weight loss component. But in terms of the actual article itself, I thought it was okay for what it was. I think it should have really driven home just like the big ticket items of big movements, resistance training, keeping your heart rate elevated because it's circuit based, working a lot of musculature, working almost every muscle in the body. So therefore, we're going to be utilizing more calories. We're improving our strength, improving our lean muscle mass, and we're going to get that. I hate using the word, but toned feeling that females are after. But when it comes to individual considerations, we've got to consider the age, like I said before, the training age and history, the injuries and conditions, and this is where an assessment is actually really important. So anyone who's just like, who says like, oh, what's the best exercise to, run 5Ks? And usually 9 times out of 10, we'll just say, just run more, just run a little bit more. But it's usually the nuance within the information that we provide them is actually really critical for them to A, be able to achieve that goal, but B, to be able to do it safely at the same time. So this is the other consideration we need to make sure that we have is in the assessment, how much running have they done in the past? What have they done in the last 6 months when it's come to running? But also the assessment allows us to see potentially whether or not this person should be even running in the first place. So we need to look at how they actually move first. What do they respond well to? We give them a couple of exercises to try out. They're very low level intensity. Do they respond well to it? If they respond well, great, we're going to include them. If they don't respond well, we might need to go a step back before we go 3 steps forward later on the track. What are their goals? When it comes to saying what's the best exercise for X, Y, and Z, you also take the goals into consideration. Religious beliefs and food restrictions always needs to be something that needs to be considered depending on who we're talking to. Medication is always important, especially for populations that have some sort of condition that we need to consider. But also previous attempts to achieve their goals as well. So are they only looking through one aspect, or they're only looking at one small part, which is still significant, but only a small fraction of the pie of trying to achieve their goal? So when it comes to the exercise is only a slice of the pie, depending on what the goal is in the individual we're talking about. Exercise consideration. So when we go into the exercise specific part, so that exercise slice of the pie, we need to look at the FIT principles. So the FIT principles is frequency, intensity, type, time, and type. So they actually relate to all the other questions previously. So like I said before, it's multifaceted. When it comes to the frequency, how many times a week are they going to train? The intensity, how hard are they going to work? The time, how long are those sessions? Or another way you could actually put it, how many sets and reps are they going to do of certain exercises? It still requires time. And also the type of exercise we're talking about. So the modality. So are they going to walk? Are they going to walk run? Are they just going to run only? Are they going to use a treadmill? These are other factors we have to take in consideration when we do say, what is the best exercise for this person, depending on what their goal is. Then probably the most important bit of information is progressive overload. So progressive overload is I wouldn't say linear approach, but it's the systematic approach of increasing volume and or intensity to someone's training. And what this does, it actually increases or induces adaptation, so the desired adaptation that we're after, right? So if you've got someone who wants to run 5Ks, so what we might do is we put them on maybe a 2-day-a-week running program. One day is shorter distance and one day is longer distance. The shorter distance stuff they might be doing, it's a lot more higher intensity. The longer distance is more working on volume. But over time, we begin to increase the time or the amount of sets and reps they do, or we tell them we want them to run a little bit harder for the same distance. So then we slowly increase the volume intensity. And usually it's between 2.5 and 10%, depending on what we're actually talking about. Some areas we can increase it quite quickly if they respond really well. Some areas may need to be a bit more gradual, but it all depends on how they respond to the exercise at hand. Now, I want to give you a bit more of an example and looking specifically at weight loss, because it seems it's going to be the next big thing in the next 6 months with all the COVID business. Basically, I put up, it's a typical 25-year-old wanting to lose weight. She's got maybe she's got a bit of carpal tunnel on her wrist, no exercise history, works in admin, so she's on a butt all day, eats takeaway quite regularly, and enjoys a social drink on the weekend. So now on the weekend, she's probably having a social drink over Zoom at the moment, just to kind of get that social aspect going. So this here, I guess you could call it slices of a pie to complete the whole picture of all the factors influencing weight loss. You can actually see the relationships of all these varying factors. So everything from the current body composition to the potential change in the food supply, because we had food supply issues for a little while. Also, she might live in a country town for all we know. Her diet composition. So what is it at the moment? Protein, carbs, and fats. Is she in nutrient-dense foods, or is it very energy-dense? The economics, how much can she afford? Does she live in a country town, or does she live in a metropolitan area? And that's going to determine what she has access to as well. Is she currently on medication? Her genetics do play a factor in this, and usually there are simple questions that we can ask to find out, what type of exercise they're going to respond well to. The gut microbiota. So what's their gut health like? We know there's a relationship between the gut and the brain, so that can actually have an impact on their ability to lose weight. Hormones, ghrelin and leptin, for hunger and satiety, these are those hormones we need to understand have a huge influence on satiety. Insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity, their metabolic rate, how much physical activity, the thermic effect of food. I can't remember what RAE is. So the resting energy expenditure, sorry. How much energy are they expending just being at rest? Their cultural practices and religions, satiety, age, behaviors. And you can see the massive interplay of factors here. Some factors are going to be really grand in terms of the influence. So usually diet composition is a big influence, and physical activity can be a big influence on people. Some things that might be a little bit smaller, but might be worthwhile to mention is, medication. Medication can actually influence. It can have an influence on it can actually have influence on your gut microbiota as well, just because of the way it plays around with the digestive tract. But also if you've got insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity issues, it can affect your satiety. It can actually increase the satiety, it can decrease it. So there's multiple influences. So it's basically what I'm saying, it's not even a clear-cut picture. And that's it.
That's good.
Cool. What do you think, Nathan? And what do you want to kind of chuck in the ring?
No, I think it's not much really to add. You said it very well. There's so many factors to it. No matter what your goal is, there's not just a one answer. I think a great coach, or that if you ask a coach and they give you a straight answer of how to do something, they're obviously they're not a great coach, because I think the best coach is someone who says that it depends. When they answer you, and if they say, what's the best way to lose weight? And they answer you, it depends, then you know that they're a good coach, because they're obviously thinking that, there's more factors to this, and there's no answer to, a specific question like that, because then there's so many factors that at play. And what you just said in that previous slide, like the it's just countless. And we got to get to know the client. We've got to get to know your goals. We've got to get to know every little, I guess, detail to be able to, construct a program or to construct a way to get to where you want to go. So no, I think everything there was well said.
Yeah, I just want to add on to your point. It was a couple of years ago. I was on Q&A, and they were talking about the obesity epidemic, and someone shouted out, the solution's simple. It's just energy in versus energy out. And I'm like, this guy's an absolute buffoon, because we're dealing with people's psychology as well. We're dealing with people's relationship with food. Karen, you obviously understand, there is a relationship with food, and it's very heavily entrenched in culture. Very heavily entrenched. What are your thoughts, Karen?
Yeah, I think, years ago, you probably did do your own exercise regime without getting professional help, because it just wasn't around and the knowledge wasn't around. And then I think maybe even 10, 20 years ago, you sourced different ways of maintaining your health, because then nutritionists came into the fore, and then of course private gyms started. But now, with all of the knowledge around, you can actually go to one source and get the knowledge to do either lose weight, improve your nutrition, improve your quality of life, improve your mental state, which is just perfect, because people just don't want to now spend, $100 on, improving their diet, $100 on going to the gym, $100 on doing their sport. They can just do one thing, which makes me feel confident that your industry is more knowledgeable and can offer a sort of a well-rounded way of supporting people, because you ask the questions. You're almost, even not psychologists, but mentors for them, and just someone to listen to as well, which is great. We've just got to get the younger generation to understand that is the position these days, and they can go to one person or one place and get so much quality information. It's amazing. It's good. Rather than doing it themselves.
100%.
I don't know what age you cut off, whether it's 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds, I don't know. It's frustrating, I know, but you've just got to market and get it out there to people that you're a one-stop shop and you can help them, definitely.
And I think it's got to just creating their awareness, because we're stuck in this dogma or this, I guess, this old school thinking that everyone's thinking the same as well. But I think as you start to put it out, that it's not just as simple as, energy in, energy out. Like, it can be done energy in, energy out, but it's still no way to live, right? And that we still got to deal with the human element first.
It's a lot of understanding to understand energy in, energy out. And to me, you do need help with that, for sure. Because the normal person doesn't understand, what even energy is. So to be able to give an environment where you can get everything is what we've got to get people to understand. Just don't YouTube it, how to run, how to do a program, because you can hurt yourself. And if you hurt yourself, it's going to cost a lot more to get back to where you were, let alone to where you want to be.
Especially all the time that you invested.
Yes. Yeah. And especially now, a lot of people are looking at finances. It's not just time. Finances are a huge thing. And they want, the result in the cheapest possible way. But if you don't do it correctly, then yeah, it's going to cost you more in the long term.
Mm.
No,
I'll
that's
swing it
good.
over
It's a good topic.
Yeah,
Very good topic.
thank you. I'll swing it over to Dave, so I know he's got to run off quickly.
Yeah, I'll quickly add 2 cents in yeah, literally the best way, probably the best way doesn't mean it's an optimal way. Like optimal means the desired outcome, but what's best is not optimal. Like if you want to grow your biceps as fast as you can, like you have to control everything. You have to control sleep. You might as well be in a lab experiment if you want to be growing your arms or your chest or your glutes as fast as you can, because no alcohol, sleeping probably 9 hours a night, probably no external stresses. Just the training stimulus has to be on point. Yeah, literally every variable has to be controlled. But even saying then, everyone's going to be individual, and it's what the client brings to the table is going to determine what's best for them. You say, oh, to grow your biceps, you need to train 6 days a week for 2 hours. And then the client's like, oh, well, I can only train for 3 days. It's like, well, I've just told you the best option in my eyes, but the client says, oh, well, that's not the best for me. And so you've changed the mindset in their mind, and now they have to figure out what's best for them rather than for the best thing. So what's best is not optimal. I think that's my 2 cents for the night. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. What's optimal for the individual at the end of the day? Can they only train 3 days a week? Okay. But if they want the best results, see, Dave, if they want the best results, they're gonna have to train, 10 times a week. They're gonna have to do split training sessions if they want the best results in town. But sometimes it's not going to be optimal for the individual, because we know it has to fit with who they are. Mum, you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. There's far more to it than just the diet and the exercise. And again, it's making people aware of that. They just think it's some quick fix or whatever, and they're not knowledgeable enough. And I think the industry sometimes is not showing enough. They're not informing enough about it is a holistic approach. It's not just about busting your ass and limiting your calories.
No, I agree with that. I'm just making a note of that, because
it's cringeworthy. It's cringeworthy when I've heard in the last couple of months someone said, oh yes, I've been doing more exercises and I'm doing this on YouTube or whatever. Oh, but gee, my lower back's really sore. And you go, oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
And
you're like, no shit.
Back in the day I would have said probably, have you sought professional help? No. And these days I just go, oh, that's a shame.
Another way you would put it is, sorry, Karen, but another way you could actually put it is just the way when you go to the doctors, right? You go to the doctors for 15 minutes and they just go like, all right, cool, don't go do a blood test and we'll talk about it next time you come in. All right, cool. And they pick up, the only thing they look at specifically are the blood results, really, to make the best decision. And I'm like, well, first of all, those results can be influenced by many things, and it kind of mind boggles, and it's just a snapshot in time as well. And it's like let's address like we've done before, the big rocks first. Stress. Are we looking at adequate hydration, sleep? Are we also looking at nutrition, physical activity? If those factors are still are good, they're in place, then it's like, okay, cool. Then it might be worthwhile to do the bloods and just monitor that over time and see what happens. But a lot of doctors are very trigger happy when it comes to medications to fix what is presumably broken.
Just on that, just watching that doctor on TV last night saying how she's seeing 30 patients a day young people, you know, with mental, you know, suicidal, all the problems associated with what's
yes.
going on. 30 a day, 30. Like, you know,
Unbelievable, really, isn't it?
yeah. When you think, if you've ever done any one-on-one consultation, 30 a day. Like, what do you do them in 10-minute increments or something? Like, that's terrible.
And that's a total disregard of the individual.
Yeah, there's no time.
Yeah, how much care is there? That they may only be seeking attention, and that's all. But honestly, if you're seeking attention and that's it, you should be spending more than 5 minutes with them to find out why. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, so kind of back to the GP point, like we're too trigger happy. It's like, oh, my throat's sore. Oh, better take this pill. You know, it's like, okay, what else could you do? Maybe just have a glass of water and see how it goes. Maybe just have it. Maybe it just be you're just low on vitamin C. You might be a little bit crook, so maybe just have some, have an orange or a little glass of orange juice or something like that. You know, we've kind of gone away from like the simple remedies, and we're kind of going overkill really quickly. Where our approach is, you know, let's look at one facet at a time. Once we've got that kind of in place, or you're doing well with it, let's work on the next facet that we need to improve on. So that's why, you know, getting people to train first is actually a great way to begin to figure out what they should be eating a couple of weeks into it, because their motivation's high, they're feeling good, they're moving better. Now they're going to be even more motivated to start to tackle what they're eating. They're going to start control what they're eating, and they're going to do it intuitively as well.
And even how they do exercise. You know, what exercise is perfect for them. They mightn't have the environment to do certain exercises, and you know, they might not have the strength or the ability to do some things. So, you know, teaching them to do things within their capabilities is so motivational, rather than them YouTubing something and them doing something once and going, oh no, that's useless, and then talking themselves down.
Yeah, because they fail.
And if you are overweight or you do want to improve yourself, a failure is not what you need. You need to be built up, but built up in small steps with a professional